I raised my sister's abandoned baby for 10 years. Now she wants him back. Like nothing happened. I was washing dishes when the knock came. 3 sharp raps against the wood, deliberate and insistent. A sound so ordinary, yet in that moment it felt like a blade slicing through the fragile piece of my world. My hands stilled, fingers tightening around the ceramic plate, suds sliding down my wrists. I didn't move at first. Something in my gut twisted, a primal warning before my brain even had time to process why. Then, another knock, harder this time. "Coming," I called, though my voice felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. I dried my hands and walked toward the door, each step weighted with an inexplicable dread. When I swung it open, my breath hitched. She stood there, Mira, my sister. The woman who had walked out of our lives 10 years ago without a word, leaving behind a squirming, red-faced newborn I hadn't been prepared to raise. But had anyway. For a moment, I just stared at her, my heart slamming against my ribs. She looked different. Older, of course, but not in the way that time naturally ages a person. It was in her eyes, the same deep hazel as mine, but duller now, shadowed with something I couldn't quite name. Regret? Guilt? Or was it just the same restless hunger that had always burned in her? The same reckless thirst for escape that had driven her away in the first place? "Hey," she said, offering a weak smile, like she was a long-lost friend dropping by for coffee. Like she hadn't disappeared for a decade. Like she hadn't left me to pick up the pieces of the life she abandoned. I didn't invite her in. I didn't move at all. My body was a battlefield of instincts, protectiveness, anger, confusion. But beneath all of that, one stark, terrible truth stood out like a siren in my mind. She was here for him. For Caleb. The little boy who had grown up calling me Mom. I swallowed hard, my voice finally scraping past my tightening throat. "What are you doing here, Mira?" She exhaled, brushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, her lips pressing together before she spoke. "I came to see my son." The words detonated in the space between us, a bomb of syllables that shattered the air, cracking the foundation of everything I'd built over the last 10 years. I felt my fingers curl into fists at my sides. My pulse roared in my ears. "No," I said, barely above a whisper. Her expression flickered, surprise flashing across her face like she hadn't anticipated resistance. "No?" I stepped forward, blocking the doorway entirely. "You don't get to show up here after a decade and—" I forced out a sharp breath, steadying myself. "He's not your son. Not anymore." Mira's face twisted, something like pain flashing behind her eyes before she masked it with forced calm. "That's not for you to decide." My chest tightened. A decade of sacrifices, sleepless nights, scraped knees, whispered lullabies, doctor visits, school projects, bedtime stories. Did she think she could just erase all of that? Did she think she could walk in here, flip a switch, and suddenly be his mother again? "He doesn't even remember you," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "He was a newborn when you left, Mira. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who raised him. You don't get to just come back and pretend none of that happened." Her jaw clenched, and for a moment, I saw something sharp and desperate in her gaze, something that made my stomach churn. "I've changed," she insisted, stepping closer. "I've cleaned up. I have a stable job now. I can be his mother again." I almost laughed. Almost. But there was nothing funny about this. "Again?" "You never were his mother, Mira." My voice broke despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "You left, and I was the one who picked up the pieces." A gust of wind whipped between us, rustling the trees in the front yard, sending leaves skittering across the pavement. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "I have rights," she said finally, her voice lower now, more measured. A warning. My stomach lurched. Of course she had rights. Biology was cruel that way. It didn't care about love, about effort, about who was there in the middle of the night when the nightmares came. It didn't care who had kissed scraped knees or held tiny hands on the first day of school. Biology was simple, brutal, and Mira knew it. She must have seen something in my expression. Hesitation, fear, something, because she pressed on. "I don't want to fight with you, I just..." I want to be in his life. I deserve that. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping me before I could stop it. You deserve that? My voice hardened. Do you know what I deserve, Mira? I deserve not to have my entire life upended because you couldn't handle responsibility. I deserve to not have to stand here fighting for a child who doesn't even remember you. Her eyes darkened. He's mine. No, I shot back, my voice shaking with barely restrained fury. He's mine. A rustling noise from behind me made my blood run cold. My heart dropped. I turned, already knowing what I'd see. Caleb. My boy. My son. Standing at the end of the hallway in his two big Star Wars pajamas, hair tousled from sleep, his small face scrunched in confusion. His voice was soft, uncertain. Then his sleepy eyes flicked past me, landing on Mira. And then, who was that? The silence that followed was deafening. Mira flinched, her lips parting like she wanted to speak, but no words came. I turned back to her, and in that moment, I knew. She could fight, she could scream, she could throw every legal technicality at me. But she had already lost, because the little boy standing behind me didn't recognize the woman at the door, and nothing in the world could change that. The silence stretched between us, thick as a storm cloud ready to break. Mira stood frozen on my doorstep, her face paler than before, her fingers twitching at her sides like she wanted to reach for Caleb but didn't know how. And Caleb, my boy, just stood there, blinking at her with that half-awake, slightly puzzled look he always had when woken up too early. His small hands rubbed at his eyes, his Star Wars pajamas slightly rumpled from sleep. He looked at me first, searching for reassurance, for an explanation. Then his gaze flicked back to the stranger at the door. "Who is that?" he asked again, voice softer this time, uncertainty lacing his words. Mira sucked in a sharp breath, as if the question had physically wounded her. I saw something flicker across her face. Pain, maybe, or anger, or worse, guilt. I forced myself to stay calm, even as my pulse hammered against my ribs. "Caleb, sweetheart, why don't you go back to bed?" I said gently, stepping into the house just enough to block more of Mira from his view. I needed time to think, time to figure out how to handle this. But Caleb didn't move. His dark eyes, so much like mine, flickered between us again, his small brow furrowing. "But who is she?" he asked, a little firmer this time, more awake now. Mira took a shaky step forward. Her voice caught, and she had to clear her throat before trying again. "I'm your mother." A bomb detonated in my chest. I saw the exact moment Caleb processed her words. The little crease between his brows deepened, his lips parting slightly. He didn't say anything, but I could see the confusion written all over his face. His mother? No, that wasn't right. His mother had been the one who tucked him in every night. His mother had been the one who sat through every parent-teacher meeting, who stayed up with him when he had a fever, who held him after nightmares. His mother was me. I crouched down in front of him, gently placing my hands on his small shoulders. "Caleb, it's late, sweetheart. We'll talk in the morning, okay?" My voice was calm, steady, but inside I was anything but. "But please, baby," I murmured, brushing a hand over his soft curls. "Trust me." Caleb hesitated, eyes flicking to Mira one last time before finally giving a small nod. He turned and padded back down the hallway, but not before throwing one last look over his shoulder. As soon as he disappeared into his room, I exhaled sharply and turned back to Mira. My hands were trembling. "How dare you say that to him?" I whispered, my voice shaking with barely restrained fury. "You don't get to just drop something like that on a 10-year-old. Mira let out a harsh breath, crossing her arms over her chest. What was I supposed to say? Lie to him? "You already did," I snapped. "You left him. You lost the right to call yourself his mother the second you walked away." Mira's jaw clenched, and I could see the storm brewing in her eyes. "He is my son, whether you like it or not." "Then where the hell have you been for the last 10 years? I shot back. "Where were you when he had his first fever? When he took his first steps? Where were you when he cried for his mom in the middle of the night, and I was the one who had to hold him?" My voice broke, but I didn't care. I let the words spill out, let the anger shake through me. "You don't get to disappear for a decade and then waltz back in like none of it happened." Mira flinched, just for a second. And then she squared her shoulders, her face hardening. I had my reasons. I laughed. Cold, sharp, bitter. Your reasons? Oh, please, Mira. Enlighten me. What reason could you possibly have that makes it okay to abandon your newborn son? She looked away, biting her lip. That's what I thought, I said bitterly. Mira let out a sharp breath. Look, I didn't come here to fight with you. I came here because I want to be in his life again. I deserve that. That word again. Deserve. You don't get to decide that, I said, shaking my head. You don't get to demand a role in his life just because it's convenient for you now. You don't get to decide that, I said, shaking my head. You don't get to demand a role in his life just because it's convenient for you now. I've changed, she said, softer this time. I scoffed. Changed? You expect me to believe that? You haven't even told me where you've been for the last decade. What have you been doing, Mira? What suddenly made you decide to come back now? She hesitated. Just for a second. But I caught it. And just like that, something in my gut twisted again. There was something she wasn't telling me. I studied her face, searching for the cracks beneath the surface. Her clothes were nice but not expensive. Her hair was styled but had that slight, unkempt look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. And her eyes. God. Her eyes looked haunted. Mira, I said slowly, my voice quieter now but still firm. Tell me the truth. Why are you really here? She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for a second, just a brief, flickering second, I saw something else in her face. Fear. Then, just as quickly, she masked it. I'm his mother, she said simply. I want him back. A chill crawled down my spine. No, this wasn't right. Something was off. Mira had never cared about responsibility. She had never cared about anyone but herself. So why now? Why, after 10 years, had she suddenly come back demanding to be a mother again? I took a slow step back, gripping the doorframe. My heart was pounding. Get out, I said, my voice quieter than before but laced with something sharp, something dangerous. Mira's eyes narrowed. You can't keep him from me. Watch me, I whispered. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, finally, Mira took a slow step backward. This isn't over, she said, her voice cold now, cutting. I will get him back. And with that, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. I stood there long after she was gone, the cold air seeping into my bones. Something was wrong. Mira had secrets, and I had a terrible, sinking feeling that, whatever they were about to ruin everything. The door slammed shut with a hollow finality, but the echoes of Mira's words still rang inside my skull. I will get him back. I stood frozen in place, my body vibrating with rage, my pulse hammering in my ears. The house, which had always been my sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene, a place where something unthinkable had just happened. I dragged in a shaky breath and pressed my hands against the door, grounding myself, forcing my mind to clear. Mira was back, after 10 years, and she wanted Caleb. That simple truth sat in my gut like poison. I turned around slowly, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. The hallway stretched before me, dimly lit, silent except for the soft hum of the heater kicking in. At the very end, Caleb's bedroom door was cracked open just enough for me to see a sliver of darkness beyond. Had he gone back to sleep? Had he really believed me when I told him we'd talk in the morning? I moved toward his room with careful steps, trying to steady my breathing. When I pushed the door open, I saw him curled up in his blankets, his small form rising and falling with each breath. For a moment, relief loosened the tight knot in my chest. He was asleep. He was safe. But then, as I took another step inside, I saw his fingers curled around the edge of his blanket, gripping the fabric tightly. And I knew. He had heard more than I wanted him to. I sat down on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle him. I smoothed my hand over his curls, my heart aching at the thought of what tonight had already done to him. After a long pause, his voice, small and uncertain, broke the silence. She said she's my mom. A knife straight to the heart. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. She did. I admitted softly. Another long pause. Caleb shifted beneath his blankets, turning onto his side to face me. His eyes, dark and round and so full of questions, searched my face for something I didn't know if I could give him. "But you're my mom," he said. And it wasn't a question. It was a statement. A fact. I swallowed hard, my throat thick with emotion. "Yes, baby, I am." Silence stretched between us again. I waited, giving him time to process, to speak if he wanted to. Finally, he did. "Is she going to take me away?" God. The sheer fear in his voice shattered me. I gathered him into my arms, pressing a kiss against the top of his head. "No," I whispered fiercely. "No one is taking you anywhere." I felt his tiny hands clutch at my shirt, holding on to me like an anchor. But I wasn't the one who needed anchoring. Caleb fell asleep like that, curled up in my arms like he had when he was a toddler, when he needed comfort after a bad dream. But this was real. And no amount of whispered reassurances could change that. I stayed with him until his breathing evened out, until his fingers finally relaxed their grip on my shirt. Then, carefully, I slipped out of bed and left the room, shutting the door softly behind me. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, my mask of calm cracked. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. I needed help. I needed to know what my options were. I dialed the number before I could talk myself out of it. It rang twice before a groggy voice answered. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" I let out a breath, pressing my fingers to my temple. "Leo, I need you." A pause. Then his voice was instantly alert. "What's wrong?" I swallowed. "Mira's back." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Where are you?" he asked immediately. "Home. I'll be there in 10. And just like that, the line went dead. I let my phone drop to my side, staring blankly at the floor. Leo had always been the one I could count on. He had been there when Mira first disappeared, when I was left holding a newborn I hadn't been prepared for. He had been there through the sleepless nights, the financial struggles, the moments of pure exhaustion when I had doubted myself. And now, he was coming again. Because he knew. He knew the weight of this. I barely had time to pull myself together before his car pulled up outside. The moment I opened the door, Leo stepped in, his sharp green eyes scanning my face. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice firm but calm. I did. Every word, every moment. From the second I opened the door to the second Mira's final threat had left her lips. By the time I finished, Leo was pacing. "This isn't just about her wanting him back," he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. "Something else is going on here." I nodded, arms crossed tightly over my chest. I thought the same thing. She hesitated, Leo. When I asked her why now, she hesitated. Leo's jaw tightened. "She's hiding something." "Yeah," I murmured. "And whatever it is, it scares her." That thought chilled me more than anything. Mira had always been reckless, impulsive, selfish. But I had never known her to be afraid. Leo stopped pacing. "We need to be prepared for whatever's coming. If she tries to go the legal route..." "She will," I interrupted. "She said she has rights." Leo swore under his breath. "Then we need to make sure she doesn't have a case. You've had him for 10 years. That has to mean something." "But she's his biological mother," I said bitterly. "And the law doesn't care about bedtime stories and doctor visits. It cares about blood." Leo's eyes darkened. "Then we need to prove she's unfit." I let out a harsh laugh. "She abandoned a baby. Isn't that proof enough?" Leo hesitated. Then slowly he said, "Not if she has a good lawyer." I felt sick. "Then I need a better lawyer." Leo nodded. "I'll start making calls." I exhaled sharply. "And I need to find out what she's hiding. Because whatever had finally driven Mira back into our lives, it wasn't love. Whatever secret she was keeping, it was dangerous." The next morning, I woke up with a tension coiled so tightly in my chest, it felt like breathing was a conscious effort. The events of last night crashed over me the moment my eyes opened. Mira's sudden return, her demand to take Caleb, the quiet fear in my son's voice when he asked if she would take him away. No, she wouldn't. Not while I still had breath in my body. I moved through the morning routine like I always did, trying to keep things as normal as possible. Caleb sat at the kitchen table, swinging his legs as he ate his cereal, but I caught him sneaking glances at me every now and then. He was waiting for me to explain. I knelt beside him, brushing his curls from his forehead. "Remember what I said last night, sweetheart? No one is taking you away from me." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. That was all he needed, for now. But I knew this wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Leo had wasted no time. By noon, he had already set up a meeting with a lawyer, a good one. I sat across from her in her office, my hands clenched in my lap as she reviewed the case. Her name was Evelyn Carter, and she was a force of nature. Mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with an aura of no-nonsense efficiency. "You've had sole care of Caleb for 10 years, she said, flipping through the documents Leo had pulled together. "Your sister abandoned him without any formal guardianship agreement. That works in your favor." I let out a shaky breath. "But she's his biological mother. She has rights." "Not necessarily," Evelyn corrected. "Parental abandonment is a serious charge. The courts will look at who provided a stable, loving home. The burden will be on her to prove she's fit to be a mother now, not on you to prove she isn't." Hope flickered in my chest for the first time. "So I have a chance." Evelyn met my gaze. "More than a chance. I think we can win this. But I need to know. Does she have anything on you? Anything she could use to make you seem unfit?" I hesitated, shaking my head. "No, I've never been in trouble. I've done everything for Caleb. I gave up everything for him." Evelyn nodded, satisfied. "Then we fight. If she takes this to court, we make sure she loses." I exhaled slowly, gripping the armrests of my chair. "Thank you." But something still gnawed at me. The why. Why now? Why come back after all these years? And what was she hiding? That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went looking for Mira. Leo and I sat in his car outside the address we'd managed to pull up from a few contacts. It was a rundown apartment complex on the bad side of town, the kind of place where people went when they wanted to disappear. She wasn't home, but I wasn't leaving without answers. I got out of the car, climbed the stairs, and knocked on her door. Nothing. I knocked again, harder this time. "She's not here," a voice said from behind me. I turned to see an older woman standing in the hallway, a cigarette dangling from her lips, her eyes suspicious. "When was the last time you saw her?" I asked. She exhaled a cloud of smoke. "A few days ago. She left in a hurry. Looked nervous." A prickle of unease ran down my spine. "Nervous?" The woman shrugged. "Looked like she was running from something." I stiffened. "Running from what?" She flicked her cigarette onto the floor, grinding it out with her heel. "Dunno. But she owes some people money. Bad people." The cold realization settled over me. Mira wasn't back because she wanted to be Caleb's mother again. She was back because she needed something. And suddenly I knew exactly what. Mira showed up at my house the next day. And this time, I was ready. I didn't let her inside. I didn't give her the chance to manipulate, to plead, to act like she deserved anything from me. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "You're running from someone," I said without preamble. Her expression flickered, but she quickly masked it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Drop the act, Mira. I know you're in trouble. Who do you owe money to?" She laughed, but it was hollow, forced. "God, you always think the worst of me, don't you?" I folded my arms. "No, I think the truth of you. And the truth is, you wouldn't be here if you weren't desperate. You don't want Caleb. You want leverage. You want money. You think if you take me to court, I'll pay you off to make you go away." Her jaw clenched. I had hit the mark. "You don't know anything," she snapped. I stepped closer. "I know you owe people. I know they're dangerous. And I know you thought Caleb could be your ticket out." Mira's mask finally cracked. Her hands trembled as she shoved them into her jacket pockets. "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "I made some bad decisions, okay? And now, I need help." I exhaled sharply. "Help? Help is something you ask for. You don't use a child as a bargaining chip." Her eyes darted to the door, as if she could somehow see through it, see the boy inside who had no idea his biological mother was trying to sell the idea of motherhood for her own survival. I thought maybe I could make it work," she murmured. Be his mom again. Get out of this mess and start over. I shook my head, my voice deadly quiet. You don't get to start over at his expense. A long silence. Then, are you going to turn me in? She asked softly. I studied her, taking in the dark circles under her eyes, the thin line of her mouth, the weight of someone who had run out of options. No, I said. Surprise flashed in her expression. But you are going to disappear, I continued. For good. You're going to sign away your parental rights, and you are never going to try this again. If you do, I will fight you, and you will lose. Mira's breath hitched, and for a moment I thought she might argue. But then, slowly, she nodded. She knew she had lost. I held out a folder, papers Evelyn had drawn up that morning. Sign them. She hesitated. Then, with a shaking hand, she took the pen and signed. It was over. I never told Caleb the truth, not all of it. I told him Mira had decided to leave again, that she wasn't ready to be a mother, but that I would always be here. He didn't cry. He just wrapped his arms around my waist and whispered, I don't need her. I have you. And in that moment, I knew. Blood didn't make a mother. Love did. And no matter what happened, no matter where Mira went, no matter what the law said, Caleb was mine.